man, it's great to meet you. Before we get into 10,000 hours, I want to cover what we lived through the last 3.5 years. How did you get through COVID, and how did it change you?
Uh, I lived through COVID simply by understanding all the different areas that I can get involved in that doesn't involve performing. So I really got my composing skills together. I got my arranging skills together, recording, education, you name it. That was kind of like my outlet in terms of, how I can at least sustain myself. And then going out of it, it was simply just applying the skills and actually, making all the things I want to essentially actually come to fruition, whether via, partnerships with school districts or other educational, benefits. I launched a jazz festival last year that
Cool.
catered towards younger children in Upper Darby, so a little bit outside of Philadelphia, called it the Upper Darby Jazz Jam Festival, in which we featured out of all we had 6 artists booked, and 4 of them were student ensembles, whether via the Clef Club, Settlement Music School, Upper Darby High School, a lot of other schools. So did a lot of partnerships with either school districts or nonprofits to essentially bring the visibility of this music back to our younger generation. There's been a lot of talk recently about how there's kind of like a quote unquote musician shortage, or there's all these different outlets that people under the age of 18, let alone people under the age of 21, can have access to. So whether me bringing my band to schools and having students participate in performing with my group, or like I said about the jazz festival, having like 4 of the 6 performers be student performers, just kind of creating any type of outlet to essentially just have them showcase their talents. So that's what I've been doing a lot between the last 3-4 years.
Talk to me about the new album. How does it feel to have it come out now with kind of the world opening up, and just in general, how does the artistic feel of this feel for you?
It feels absolutely phenomenal. It's been out for 7 days now, and the support has been just absolutely overwhelming, both on a local level as well as a global level. Some of the songs has reached as far as London, Brazil, France, places I never thought imagined. And it's great because the good majority of my career, as you probably know, I just been a supporting musician for like a lot of different artists. So I'll get calls to do Patti LaBelle, go out for a couple days with Patti. I'll get calls to sub for the Roots a couple times, subbing for my man Ian Hendrickson Smith, who you see on the Tonight Show.
Yeah.
Um, just a lot of different performing and recording opportunities, both on people's records or on television, stuff like that. So in a way, if you really break it down, I've been that type of musician to help support someone else's vision musically, whether on a record, performance, or television. So to have my vision now come to fruition and have that be, kind of on the forefront of my artistry, I think is, I felt like the what I had to say has been solidified. History has been made. I'm a first generation American, first only musician in my family. So this was a real accomplishment for them as well, and something that they can look back on for years and kind of be like, yo, my son did that. So,
Why 10,000 hours? What was the meaning?
well, 10,000 hours is a very famous kind of social theory by Malcolm Gladwell. He talks about it in his book Outliers. Long
Yeah.
story short, yeah. So long story short, if you take people like Michael Jordan, Michael Jackson, Barack Obama, anybody who has significance, if their name has such significance, his theory is that the reason why they're all so significant, the reason why they're all so great, is because they've all put in 10,000 hours of deliberate practice into
Yeah.
their craft. So musically, what I wanted to do was I did 15 tracks, kind of explaining the process of clocking in your 10,000 hours. So whether it is the spark of an idea and how it feels to have the light bulb go off and be like, yo, I want to do this, to executing your idea, to all the preparation behind it, and even something like failing, which is one of the most important in my opinion, the most important tool, because that's where you learn what worked, that's where you learn what didn't work, and then you can go back to the drawing board and do it again. So everything on this album kind of supports that. The titles of these tracks kind of explain that as well, whether it's a cry for help, trying to receive help from something because you're struggling, or second nature, kind of have when you have something done for so long that turns into like a second nature. And I even covered Donny Hathaway's "Little Ghetto Boy" because if you look up the lyrics, um, lyrically speaking, there's a lot of similarities between "Little Ghetto Boy" and "10,000 Hours." So
Right
yeah.
on. How did this journey begin for you? How did you get into the music and more specifically jazz?
I picked up the saxophone when I was in fourth grade, so that's about 8, 9 years old. I had a really great music program in elementary school. So I was born in Philadelphia, but I was raised outside the city in a town called Upper Darby, Pennsylvania. But the two cities were so close to each other that I'll go to school Monday to Friday, and then I'll go to Philly on the weekends and do some of their extracurricular programs that some of these different programs offer, like the Kimmel Center Youth Jazz Ensemble. I was a member of that for a couple of years. That birthed a lot of amazing musicians like Justin Faulkner, who's now the drummer for Brandon Marsalis' group,
Mhm.
Nazir Ebo, who's now a drummer for Joshua Redman, Emmanuel Wilkins, who's like the face of Blue Note Records. So I was surrounded by the cats at the Kimmel Center. And then in Upper Darby, I was also surrounded by just more cats because I went to school with this gentleman called Benjamin St. Fort, who's now known as Benny X, who won, hip hop producer of the year. And he's like producing songs for people like Drake, Future, a lot of people. I went to school with this bass player named Eric Watley, he was on Jimmy Kimmel Live, I want to say a couple weeks ago, playing for this artist called Friday. He's about to go to Abu Dhabi or whatever to play with John Legend. My man Josh Thomas, who's in LA now. So long, you can tell I was just surrounded by just so many just serious creatives, not just people who pick up the horn and kind of get by with it. They were in the shed. They were serious. They were already getting paid gigs. At 12, 13, 14, 15. I didn't know getting paid for music was a thing at the time. So it was just it was just really inspiring. So from being in Upper Darby programs and then being in other programs like the Kimmel Center, being in those situations where I kind of wasn't really the best musician in the room, but kind of like through the whole osmosis thing, I kind of built my skills up a little bit. And then by the time I turned 18, um, in addition to all the other gigs I was doing around Philadelphia, playing all the local clubs and all that kind of stuff, that's when I kind of really established myself as a supporting musician, whether I get a call to be on someone's record or arrange for someone's record or perform as a sideman for a jazz quintet or something like that. So I just found myself in a lot of those situations where I just had to perform, whether live or in the studio at a very high level. And then I met a musician by the name of Jeff Bradshaw. He saw me from afar, and then he gave me a call to do the Roots Tiny Desk. And then we did the Roots Tiny Desk, and I got a relationship with Questlove and a lot of the other people in the Roots. Jeff Bradshaw was also the trombonist for Patti LaBelle, so he got me on a lot of those gigs as well. So through those gigs, kind of meeting a lot of other people that does a lot of other things, and just kind of staying afloat. And to go back to answer your question about jazz specifically, I was in seventh grade, and they have these little middle school jazz competitions or whatever. So I remember we were at Wells Valley Middle School. I want to say this was back in 2008, March, springtime era. I actually won outstanding soloist at that festival, and the prize, besides my trophy, they actually gave me like a jazz record, the first jazz record I ever got. Because mind you, both my parents not from America. Jazz wasn't really played in the house, let alone any Black American music at all. A lot of the music at the time before that record from that jazz festival was like a lot of music from Eritrea, a lot of music from Ethiopia, a lot of music from Saudi Arabia, Israeli music, all that kind of stuff, which is still dope. I schooled a lot of my friends from just kind of playing a lot of those records. But yeah, it was a tribute to John Coltrane record. Unfortunately, I wish I knew where that record was, but it was the first time I heard like My Favorite Things and Afro Blue and Blue Train and all those classic Coltrane tunes. And at the time, YouTube was like kind of getting up there a little bit in terms of
Yeah.
kind of being an accessible source of medium and content. So I remember I would just YouTube all these artists. And so I started off with John Coltrane, then I went to Charlie Parker, Bird, then I went to Dexter Gordon, then I went to Arturo Sandoval, then I went to Clifford Brown, Freddie Hubbard, and then I just found myself in a consistent loop of just schooling myself on jazz artists and learning their repertoire and transcribing their solos and all that kind of stuff. So, and it's still, the bug still hits me today. I'm consistently learning, consistently trying to learn repertoire, learning other people's solos and all that kind of stuff. It keeps you fresh, and it just, all in all, it just makes you better as the days go by.
So what do you like the best about being a professional musician? There's all these parts to it, from recording to playing live to teaching, all of these things. What do you look forward to the most?
The biggest thing, so there's two parts to this question. So the biggest thing that I see within myself is reaching as many people as I can. Music, everybody says music is a language that we all understand, right? Stevie Wonder said it, everybody says it. And I am a true believer in that statement. And, you know, the fact that I'm from Philly, still living in Philly, and my music is reaching many places and many people that I never thought imagine. I'm just excited to do that more. I just want to reach as many people as I can. And then the second part to that is I want to inspire the next generation to have them understand that music is a valuable living. Uh, you know, it's something that, even though it's not easy, is something that can be done. And even if they're not musicians, they learn a lot of life skills through music, like showing up on time for meetings, or never never being unprofessional, and make sure your professionalism is at a high level. So it's definitely those two things: reaching as many people as I can, in addition to bringing up the next generation below me, to kind of have them take this task full on.
So at the end of the day, why do you love jazz?
I love jazz because it's an expression. I can express myself the best. I know that statement's kind of, said amongst a lot of other musicians, both ahead and below me, but it's really true. I can play just one single note, and the emotion and the vibrations that it reaches to other people can make them feel happy. It can make them sad. It can make them want to leave. So it's definitely a lot of expression involved in that. And I feel like, just, all in all, I'm at my most creative. I can take risks. Uh, and, if something doesn't work out, and look, all right, just go back to the drawing board and just, keep on trying other different types of scenarios and probabilities, and just to make things happen. Also, is a good lesson in teamwork, especially if you have your own group that you lead, kind of understanding everybody's role, and just making sure the music can come as naturally as it can, just through working with each other. Uh, yeah, you just learn a lot of amazing skills, entrepreneurship skills, so there's so many umbrellas that's underneath the big umbrella of music, and being a musician and playing jazz. So
So if you could get into a time machine and go back in time and see one dream jazz gig, where are you going?
one dream jazz gig, oof, I don't know if I would say a jazz gig, but I would definitely love to be in the studio with Sonny Rollins when he was recording Saxophone Colossus.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think the quartet that he had, with Tommy Flanagan and Max Roach, I think that's just phenomenal. Also, the same thing with Clifford Brown and the Clifford Brown with Strings album. I
Yeah.
would love to just see how, first and foremost, how many pieces of the orchestra was in the studio together, and in collaboration with the rhythm section, and just everything, how everything was charted out, how everything was conducted. I would just love to go back and kind of witness those magical moments, because they're, you know the Clifford Brown with Strings record, that's going to be here with us forever.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
Saxophone Colossus record, that's going to be with me forever. So I would love to kind of get into those studios at the time, and kind of see how things were going, and what went down. So
So at the end of the day, everyone has a perception of you, family, friends, fans, but you run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
I think I am, well, I know I am a very true, authentic musician from Philadelphia that is very, very honest with where I'm from, what I've been through, and expressing that through the music to kind of have people understand my story, not just as a musician, but as a full, well-rounded person.
Right on. Man, this has been great. Thank you so much for opening up about the album, your life in music. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you, man. I appreciate you. I appreciate your time for
Yeah,
talking and listening to me. I appreciate that, man.
I love the music.